Could Baltimore Ravens running back J.K. Dobbins end up being a league winner this year? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Magdziuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for tuning in. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Pick projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That is prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. She is Kate Magdziuk. Follow her on Twitter at FFBallBlast. Kate, week 14 is here. It's gone. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. I am actually kind of like this was like a very positive vibes kind of week for me, Marcus. I was looking like usually this is our highs and lows segment, like winners, losers. And I feel like I'm usually the wet blanket. Like I feel like I'm always the skeptical one. I feel like I'm always like one, second more hesitant than everybody else to go all in. And when I was looking through, the list of players that I wanted to talk about today, it was a lot of positivity and it was a lot of good vibes.
Yes.
And I'm ready to start off the Monday strong. I'm ready.
Well, let's talk about one of those players that gave you some good vibes on Sunday. And J.K. Dobbins looked absolutely fantastic. This is the first time he's played, I believe, since week 6. 15 carries, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Gus Edwards also in this game looked good. 13 carries for 66 yards. Dobbins did this against the Pittsburgh defense with Tyler Huntley in the game for a little bit and then Anthony Brown. Pittsburgh was keying on the run game, and it still didn't matter. J.K. Dobbins just looked absolutely incredible. And even after the game, Kate, he said he's not 100% yet, but he feels like he's getting close. If that's not 100%, whew, I can't imagine what he's going to look like when he is.
Well, I think like the most exciting thing, Marcus, like he looked phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
But like on that, there was that initial run that he broke off that got him right next to that goal line for his goal line touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And on that breakaway run, I feel like you could even see, for as good as he looked on that breakaway run, you're like, he doesn't feel like he's 100% at full speed.
He doesn't
like
have the top end speed, right? Like
he
still
doesn't
has
have the
quickness
top
and the
end
burst.
speed.
Yep.
Yes, he doesn't have that same element of burst that J.K. Dobbins once had. But let's not forget, like this man came back from a torn ACL, then had another knee injury. Like we are seeing really good things out of a guy that really has no business showing us really great things right now. So I think this is a big moment, right? And I think it's a big moment for the rush game in general there for the Baltimore Ravens. You mentioned Gus Edwards, just another underrated asset. Like I think both of these guys, interestingly, might win you some leagues. Like Gus Edwards, I think if he gets 13 carries a game rest away, I think that's probably in consideration for a flex play for your fantasy football playoffs. And
if he gets double-digit touches, he's a flex play just because he's always been so efficient.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what this run game does, right? And Lamar Jackson, if he comes back, hopefully he does just in the nick of time. I don't know if the state of the backup quarterback is going to maybe push his rehab a little bit quicker. It's not like they really have that luxury of time, especially with the Cincinnati Bengals fresh on their tails. Like we might actually see Lamar Jackson get back a little bit quicker if it's physically possible. But coming up, Cleveland Browns, Atlanta Falcons, Pittsburgh Steelers again. That is a really nice schedule rest of season. And I think that both of these running backs are going to end the season on a high note. I think J.K. Dobbins, you've got to be really excited about what he's going to offer moving forward. And I think he's a guy that most people were kind of like, we've been burned so often by J.K. Dobbins. And I think we need to take a step back and just appreciate what we saw on the football field. And roll with it.
If you held on to him through this entire time, you're going to be rewarded with some big games. But Kate, where would you rank him right now among dynasty running backs? Currently, dynasty DLF has him at RB20. Does that seem low, right, too high?
I think that feels low based on upside, right? Like, I think we know what he can do. Like, for example, some guys that I would prefer him over, at least right now, Joe Mixon. I would take J.K. Dobbins over Joe Mixon really at any point in the day.
Alvin Kamara.
It like feels really interesting, especially like this is a 27-year-old running back. No real secure future in terms of like what this offense is. There's no real offensive identity yet. And he's only getting older. And Marcus, they kind of kicked the can down the road with these assault charges for Alvin Kamara. So we have to assume that he didn't miss time this year. He's probably going to miss a little bit of time next year. That bumps him down in my dynasty rankings. How about Miles Sanders? Somebody who's having a great year, but is a little bit on the older side. He's going into a contract year. There's a lot of uncertainty there. I think J.K. Dobbins fits right around like RB 17, 18.
Yeah.
And I think that feels really reasonable, but I would not be surprised if in 6 months we're talking about him closer to the top 12.
And I also would say it depends on what type of league you're in, right? If you're in a half-point PPR, I think he's obviously more valuable than he is in a full-point PPR. He had no targets yesterday. That's just not really going to be part of his game. Maybe once Lamar comes back, we do see him get into that.
But even like
3 targets a game.
Yeah, even from a target standpoint, like he's never going to be an Austin Eckler. He's never going to be a key part of that passing game.
That's why it's hard to ever rank him inside the top 10 or 12.
Yeah, it caps that upside, but you do know that like running is what Baltimore does so well. Sure, Lamar Jackson's running ability like that sometimes precludes itself from getting the running back super involved in the passing game, but I think his upside in terms of touchdowns, in terms of touches, very high.
Yes, I 100% agree. Just it's nice to see J.K. Dobbins healthy and back on the field. So let's talk about some more winners, Kate, from Sunday. But before we do that, we want to let you know that this podcast is sponsored by Turo. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car that you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the US, UK, Canada, and Australia. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip, or get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Or if you just want to test out that new electric vehicle that you've had your eye on for a while to see how it fits in your everyday life, many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Forget boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. We also want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we are sure you're going to love. That's why you'll be able to find a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion available right now as a bonus episode on Locked On Presents. Think Like a Champion is a brand new podcast from Russell Wilson and Audible. Russ is a champion on the field, but off it, we rarely know the grind of the path to greatness. Russell Wilson, alongside co-host Harry Wilson and Trevor Moawad, dig into high-performance athletes, artists, and leaders that push the boundaries of their potential. You'll hear from Von Miller. You'll hear from other Olympic medalists. You'll hear from Juju Smith-Schuster. Hosts will swap stories and share proven mental techniques that have gotten the world's most elite performers across the finish line and beyond. Available for free on Audible or wherever you get your podcasts. Head over to Locked On Presents for a sneak peek of Think Like a Champion, or catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcasts, available everywhere right now. Audible. Get in the game. All right, Kate, let's talk about some more winners from week 14. Who do you got?
I got Trevor Lawrence. All right. He is literally the QB1 on the week heading into Monday Night Football. And I'm going to be honest, Marcus, with the game we have on slate for Monday Night Football, I think we can just like stamp it in Trevor Lawrence, QB1.
Yeah.
You're
not projecting a big Mac Jones game tonight?
No, I'm not. Although, hey, he said it. He had a banger in week 12. Let's not forget. But QB1 this week. Like I absolutely love what we're seeing out of Trevor Lawrence. I've always been one of the ones that were more lukewarm on Trevor Lawrence. Not so much a knock on the talent, but like the the fact that this guy was going to come in and that instant dub of generational. Like I think he's been solid, and I think what we've seen out of him with Doug Peterson in particular, really something special. He's already doubled the number of QB1 performances he had in 2021, and we're in week 14. We got time to go. He ranks top 10 in pass yards, touchdowns, completions, total EPA. Like this guy has the same number of touchdowns as Kirk Cousins, who I think we all feel is having a pretty decent year, but 3 fewer interceptions. QB8 on the season so far, ranking on Dynasty League Football, QB9. But what I think is really interesting, Marcus, is when you look at his ADP chart. So, there was no time higher in his ADP than when he was first drafted, right? Like that moment between being drafted and when he first stepped onto the football field. And he's really not even like approaching anywhere close to where he was initially being ranked. Like he was being drafted top 80 prior to stepping onto the football field. And then we saw his ADP take a tumble. But I think we're probably going to see his ADP trend much, much higher this offseason. Let's talk about some names, right? And the most recent batch of ADP drafted on average behind Curtis Samuel. How do you feel about that?
Oh my gosh, get out of here.
James Robinson. How do you feel about that?
Oh, it's ridiculous. Absolutely.
Michael Gallup, who I know you love, but
that's dumb.
It's dumb, right? Like
we need to compare him to other quarterbacks, right? Like, all right. According to Dynasty League Football, these are the quarterbacks that are being ranked ahead of him. Justin Fields, I get it, right? The rushing and stuff is insane. Kyler Murray, QB7.
Ooh. I can't believe I'm even saying ooh. Right around I'll take ooh. Yikes. I had no idea, Marcus, that it would be that close for me. I'll still take Kyler Murray.
Okay.
For rushing upside, but
quarterbacks behind him: Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, Tua, Trey Lance.
I feel like I'll take Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
I'm shocked. I am shocked, Marcus, because
I know
it's not like we're looking at Trevor Lawrence and we're saying, okay, so he's got Tyreek Hill, he's got Jalen Waddle. Like if you put Trevor Lawrence in that Mike McDaniel offense with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, he'd probably be a top 5 quarterback right now.
And that's the thing that's really exciting and it's why the Christian Kirk signing this offseason was so important for them, because it just gives them at least one competent NFL receiver. And I think Zay Jones has actually helped out a little bit, and they still have Marvin Jones, but now they have an NFL receiving core. And Kate, you're starting to see it like actually matter. His last 5 games, you ready? 72% completion percentage, almost 1,400 passing yards, 275 passing yards a game, 10 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 120 rushing yards and a touchdown, QB rating of 111. Like, Kate, not bad, right? Like it's finally starting to happen for him. We should also mention his stats from Sunday: 30 of 42, 368 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Also added in a rushing touchdown. It's happening. Like it's now that we've had a 5-6 game sample size for Trevor Lawrence, like this is the player that we all liked and loved coming out of Clemson.
It turns out Urban Meyer, not a great coach.
Yeah.
That's like my biggest takeaway from week 14. But on the real, Trevor Lawrence, like we didn't even mention the fact that this dude's about to get Calvin Ridley as a wide receiver one. And we
Yes.
can talk about, like,
I even forgot
what's he
about that,
going
to
to
be
look
honest.
like in his return to football. Like, I don't know. Right. Like,
It's
I
going to
have
be an
no
upgrade
idea.
over Jamal Agnew or whoever else they want to play in that third and fourth receiver spot, right? Like that.
Like,
That's the very worst. If he's like he was in 2019, 2020, whew.
yeah, I think I'm actually looking to buy Trevor Lawrence right now, and just overall super, super impressed. Other like quick shout outs at the quarterback position. Want to shout out Justin Herbert, who looks like Justin Herbert again. I feel like there
Shocker.
was a moment of panic a little bit where, we weren't seeing a ton of touchdown upside, weren't seeing him. We just weren't seeing him look like Justin Herbert. But last night was, I feel like, the first game since his rib injury that we've seen him look fully like Herbie, fully loaded. And
Nice.
like, he had his weapons on the field.
As I
He
said, that
had
helps, right?
Keenan
You have Mike
Allen.
Williams back. That seems like it helps a little bit.
It helps. I mean, like, this whole narrative of like Tua versus Justin Herbert, like, we're evaluating Justin Herbert at his lowest. Like, it didn't really feel all that fair, but he looked great again. One last shout out before we take a quick break, Marcus. Jared Goff. I want to shout out Jared Goff, who, like, has been crushing it at home. Faced a not fantastic Vikings defense, but put up 330 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions. This team is starting to look like just a really solid team in and out, right? Like, in his time in Detroit, averaging 21 points per game in Detroit, specifically at home. Like, I feel like at home, he's the perfect QB1 replacement should you need one in fantasy. But also just want to shout out the fact that Ian Rappaport came out and he said this team is not looking at Jared Goff as a bridge anymore. Like, they're looking at him as their franchise quarterback. And I think if that's the sort of vibes we're going with, Jared Goff, he's sitting at QB 26 in dynasty rankings right now, behind guys like Tom Brady, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones. I think I would take Jared Goff over these guys, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I mean, Goff has been really, really good in this offense. There was a couple game stretch where they struggled. I think it was against New England, and then it was Dallas the next week, and they were just
Those are
off a
tough
little bit.
defenses.
Those are tough defenses, but at the same time, he lost Amon-Ra St. Brown like on the third snap against the Cowboys. I don't think he played against Detroit. When they have all their weapons, it's a tough offense to stop. And now that you're adding Jameson Williams, who scored a long touchdown in this game, I mean, it feels very similar to like what Goff did with the Rams early in his career. Like, you have all these weapons. He can play point guard, distribute. He's probably not going to elevate the talent around him, but for
But he can
fantasy,
manage it.
for fantasy, it's great. He's going to have a high completion percentage. He's going to get the ball to the playmakers. I'm in. I am.
Derek Carr or Jared Goff?
At this point, it's because of the situations, especially it's Goff and the age, right? I think Goff is significantly younger.
Matthew Stafford or Jared Goff?
Oh, not even close. Goff. I got some real concerns about Stafford ever playing again.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers or Jared Goff?
Rodgers is going to be 40 next year. Goff is 28. I think I'd lean Goff. Goff has outperformed him the last 2 years, right?
Trey Lance or Jared Goff?
Lance.
All right. I mean, Marcus, based on like some of the names we throw around here, Goff's at like QB 15.
Yeah.
Does that feel right?
Yep. It does. I feel like
it feels right, but it feels so wrong at the same time.
He's got to be ahead of the Kenny Pickett, Mac Jones, Russell Wilson tier. Like, he just has to. I think he's in that Kirk Cousins tier now.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some losers, Kate, from week 14. There wasn't a ton of them, which is always good, right? We don't like to be negative on the show. But before we do that, we want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. All you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Pick projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It is that easy. They are currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. Download the Prize Pick app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. Deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, Kate, who do you have as one of the biggest losers from Sunday?
I think we should talk about Travis Etienne, who he's been struggling as of late. He was kind of on that upward trajectory, and he was winning us weeks. Marcus, he was being heavily utilized, but we start to see the crumble, right? Just a little bit. And I don't necessarily like I'm not holding this against him, right? He's had I think one of the toughest strengths of schedule in terms of production, right? Like it had 3 straight weeks with 20 or more fantasy points in PPR leagues, but has followed it up with some stinkers against the Chiefs, Detroit. Detroit's actually like a pretty underrated, tough matchup right now. In like since week 7, allowing the second fewest fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. Baltimore Ravens, 6th fewest fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. Cowboys, tough. Jets, tough. Like all of these are top 10 rushing defenses right now, and he's not been able to overcome them. I'm not holding that against him, but like I'm using this as an opportunity to buy that dip. We've seen the upside, and I do just want to point out the fact that should you make it to your fantasy football championships, he gets Houston in week 17, and he could win you. He could win you your championship. So don't give up on Travis Etienne just yet.
The only thing that's concerning to me, Kate, is the receiving part of it. Like there's just too many games where he just does nothing. Like against the Titans, 0 targets. Against Baltimore 2 weeks ago, 0 targets. Katie hasn't had a game this season with more than 3 receptions in a game. And that's a little shocking to me because he was such a good receiver coming out of Clemson. He only has 25 receptions on the season. I was hoping that he'd finish the year like closer to 50. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
I don't get it, but I do think we know from a talent perspective, the upside is there. We're continuing to see, I think, this offense develop. I'm not like 3 feet out the door. My feet are still all in the door here. And if there's concern there, it doesn't come from a talent perspective, maybe a scheme perspective. I'm not buying it just yet.
Yeah. Do you have any other losers from week 14?
Nobody that I want to shout out in particular, Marcus. Like I said, I walked away from this week astoundingly just kind of thrilled.
I have one.
Okay.
Just one.
Let's hear it.
It's not really a big loser because we know this player is really talented. Saquon Barkley just hasn't looked the same in about a month now. And I know he was dealing with a neck injury. He was, a game time decision in this one, 9 carries for 28 yards. Kate, he hasn't gone over 63 yards since November 13th when they played the Texans. He's back down to averaging 4.3 yards per carry. I just wonder, like in free agency this year, if he's just not going to get the money that everybody is anticipating, and if guys like Josh Jacobs and Tony Pollard aren't more valued because they can stay healthy, they've been more effective. I don't know. I just think as good as Barkley is, he just really hasn't lived up to that number 2 pick status, and I think he's maybe a little bit overvalued right now in dynasty leagues.
I I think that those concerns feel fair. Actually, how about one more? One more just kind of stinker that I think is worth noting. Deshaun Watson put up a decent amount of yards in week 14, 276 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but certainly still shaking off rust,
Which
I
you would
would say.
expect, right? Like, I don't think
For
anybody thought
sure.
he was gonna come in and look awesome.
No, but I just think it's worth noting that um I saw a lot of people stashing Deshaun Watson for the fantasy playoffs. It doesn't it doesn't feel like it's a lock that we're going to see him perform at a top tier level of play in 2022.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you. All right, that is it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Dynasty your first listen of the day. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, the biggest takes, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and as always, the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All the same places that you download the Locked On Dynasty podcast. Go check out Kate on Twitter at FFBallBlast. Always has some fantastic tweets that make me chuckle on Sundays. You can follow me at Marcus_Mosher. Matt and Ryan will be back on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Kate, you and I coming back on Friday to recap the Seahawks 49er Thursday night football and get you ready
Fun
for
one.
3 games on Saturday. Saturday football is back.
Yay.
Enjoy your week, everybody. See you next time.